Greetings, vintage Star Wars enthusiasts. Welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to dive into the world of lightsaber replicas. I hope you will join me as we embark on a journey through the galaxy showcasing some iconic pieces from the Star Wars universe. First up, we have the legendary lightsaber wielded by none other than Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back. But this isn't just any replica. It's a vintage Graflex converted into a lightsaber hilt. It doesn't get any more authentic than this. I have had this piece since long before the days when you could just walk into a store and buy a lightsaber hilt. Let's take a closer look at this fascinating prop replica by first becoming acquainted with the Graflex and where it comes from. While not the rarest nor the most expensive of lightsaber components, the Graflex holds a special place in the hearts of collectors. With tales of discovery shared across forums and message boards, the quest to obtain a vintage Graflex has become the stuff of legend. Once a common and cheap find at photography swap meets, the Graflex 3-cell flash gun was a standard bearer of the photographic industry in the mid-20th century. Manufactured by Graflex Inc., this sturdy piece of equipment was the go-to choice for professional photographers and enthusiasts alike. Originally designed to provide powerful illumination for photographers capturing moments in time, the Graflex flash gun boasted a robust construction and a distinctive appearance. With its cylindrical body, clamp, and red button, it was a familiar sight in dark rooms and studios around the world. Little did anyone know that this unassuming flash gun would one day become an integral part of cinematic history. The vintage Graflex has now ascended to a coveted status, sought after by Jedi aficionados worldwide. With official replicas and fan recreations abound, identifying a legitimate vintage Graflex has become a near full-time endeavor for enthusiasts, with dedicated Facebook groups and comprehensive guides aiding in the quest for authenticity. With all of this in mind, let's now take a closer look at this Graflex lightsaber conversion. Starting from the top, one can clearly see the spotlight switch, the characteristic socket grips, and the main switch. From there, we get a look at the S17 cord port, followed by the focusing spotlight. Moving on down the hilt, we come to the Graflex clamp. This clamp has Graflex clearly engraved around the face. However, textured chrome tape was used in the film to cover this writing, and subsequently on this prop. Closely related is a bus connector. A bus connector that was believed to be an HP 44 bus connector type, or an Otis Elevator PCB board bus connector. Given the numerous images and variances among the screen-used hilts, both are likely candidates, and which one used is likely dependent upon the scene being filmed. Underneath the clamp, we have the grips. Grips which are believed to be British military windshield wipers with a notched cavity to fit the fastening rivets, or as some believe today, specialty screws. A side-by-side of these military windshield wipers with that of the movie prop and this Graflex conversion reveal the striking similarity. Finally, we reach the bottom of the hilt. From this angle, you can clearly see the belt hanger assembly made from a Cobalt D-ring clip flash gun. The assembly is attached using 2 rivets. As an interesting note, it would appear that Luke Skywalker's lightsaber was also manufactured in Rochester, New York. Before we move on, let's take a few moments for one final look at the saber hilt. Now let's take a closer look at the Obi-Wan Kenobi Lightsaber replica from A New Hope. This replica is not constructed with original parts, as is the case with the Graflex, but instead was custom machined to the same specifications as the original prop. The Kenobi saber emerged as more of a Franken-prop, a creation pieced together from an assortment of scraps. Initially, identifying these scraps proved challenging, as reference material from A New Hope was limited to a few brief close-ups. However, with time and meticulous scrutiny, every part has finally been identified. Among them, some are common, while others remain incredibly rare. Echoing the ingenuity of Star Wars production design, which often sourced materials from airline and military scrap. So let's take a closer look at the parts that have been identified for this prop. From the top, we have the emitter. This piece is a balance pipe from a Rolls-Royce Derwent 8 or 9 jet engine. Essentially, it is part of a fuel pressure regulation system. More specifically, the large female segment of the assembly. Further down the hilt to the main body, we have a central grip made from a 1916 World War I British rifle rod grenade. Beneath the main grip, we have a Graflex clamp with an Exactra bubble strip, virtually identical to the setup used on the A New Hope Luke hero saber. There are 2 transistors backed with washers mounted into the side of the clamp. Whether their purpose was decorative or functional remains a mystery. From the clamp, we have the booster section, which is part of a Browning A&M-2 fighter plane machine gun, and underneath it all, the pommel. This was made from a chromed British sync knob, specifically from a Starlight model made by Armitage Shanks. As you can see, when I mentioned it was a Frankensaber, I wasn't kidding. While we take a moment to look over this replica, I would like to mention that this replica and the one that follows have functionality that the Graflex prop does not. These sabers have internal electric wiring which utilize a 9-volt battery to illuminate a custom-made blade. This feature is likely to make many shrug today, as there are now manufactured sabers that are brighter, more realistic, and have sound effects, although they are not screen accurate with regard to size. Even just having these light up was an impressive feat in the late 90s and early 2000s. This was long before the days of mass-produced replicas, and therefore having any electric parts at all, no matter how primitive, was a rarity among props of the time. As we move forward, I'll showcase the illumination of the blades and provide a demonstration of how they function, but first, let's delve into our next prop, the iconic lightsaber wielded by Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. This unique lightsaber prop has 2 distinct versions, the prototype and the construction sabers. The prototype saber is seen in a single shot of the final film during the moment when Vader examines the lightsaber. It features flush rails or the appearance of rails, possibly achieved with tape. In a scene cut from the film but revealed in subsequent releases, Luke is shown completing the construction of his lightsaber with the construction saber. This sequence showcases modified rails, a sliding card, and blinking lights to simulate the assembly process. The Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker Hero Lightsaber, also known as the Luke Hero, is most commonly associated with the construction version. It has become the preferred representation of Luke's lightsaber despite its limited appearance in the film. This saber was utilized in the Yuma sequences. Conformation can be determined by matching uneven ring sizes on the grenade or grip section. Contrasted with the stunt saber, they are nearly identical. The main difference being that of the Graflex clamp, which is not seen on the Luke Hero. It forgoes the fancy buttons and lights and instead uses the classic clamp arm. Nevertheless, this lightsaber prop's significance extends beyond its brief appearance on screen, serving as a focal point for fans, collectors, and enthusiasts alike, embodying the enduring legacy of the Star Wars universe. Both the original prop and this replica appear to have been machined from an aluminum core. While it may seem at first glance that this hilt utilizes the same sync knob as the A New Hope Kenobi saber, upon closer inspection it becomes clear that this is not the case. Although it's likely meant to evoke that interpretation, it's evident that this pommel is smaller than the sync knob and is crafted from the same material as the rest of the saber. So with all the details out of the way, let's examine how to illuminate these sabers and the mechanisms by which that happens. I use these sabers' hilts exclusively as prop replicas and have not attempted to power and light them in over 20 years. At this point, I am not even sure if they still work. First, let's look at the Kenobi saber. We start by removing the pommel. Simply unscrew the pommel from the base. This will expose the 9-volt battery connector. With the battery connected, screw the pommel back onto the hilt. Now, let's take a closer look at the return of the Jedi lightsaber. Similar to before, let's start by removing the pommel from the hilt. Unlike the previous saber, this one doesn't have threads. Instead, it's secured with a rubber O-ring. With a firm grip and enough force, you can pull the pommel out. However, I've found it easier to remove by treating it as if it were threaded. And again, we secure the battery and replace the pommel. Now that we have powered these hilts, let's look at the removable blades and the mechanism by which they are powered. Made from acrylic, these blades use a rather unique mechanism to connect to the hilt. Usually associated with audio devices, a 1/4-inch RCA jack serves to connect these blades to power. A quick look down one of the hilts reveals the port for the RCA jack. The acrylic blades are secured to the hilt via an Allen wrench screw located near the emitter. To ignite the Kenobi Saber, there is a black button located just under the Graflex clamp. To ignite Luke's return of the Jedi Saber, there is a black slide switch located on the side of the protruding box. With batteries providing power and saber blades secure, let's fire them up and see what happens. First Kenobi, but let's have some fun and add a cool factor with some sound effects. Now Luke, again with sound effects. A look at them both together. They seem a bit dimmer than I remember, but again, these hilts are display pieces, and I really don't ever use them for this purpose. And yet another angle provides a clearer view of the hilt and blade combination. As a final note, the display stand for these sabers was a custom setup found from one of the many vendors on Etsy. If you are in the market, I highly recommend taking a look at the available vendors and options. And with that, we conclude another episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and will stay with me as I continue on in this adventure into my Star Wars collection. Until next time, may the Force be with you.